Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for Friday, the 11th of June. All right, another disappointing result here. The CPI numbers a little bit mixed, month on month down. The year on year was still up, but when the devil was in the detail, the breakdown of the inflation numbers shows a little, or supports what the Fed's been saying, that is transitory. Now, commodity prices, fuel, etc., adding a lot of a big component of that inflation target. So at this stage, things are still on track in the US, but it's sort of cooled things a little bit. And that's where the Fed's done a good job in sort of communicating that this isn't just, across the whole board. It's a few segments of the economy. So that's sort of slowed things. The ECB came out and said they're going to, keep their growth targets. They see growth coming along, but at the same time, they want to keep all the QE in place. Now, what this has done, like if we had like exceptionally strong numbers and they were the right components, then everything goes gangbusters. But this is a situation where it just eases pressure off the Fed a touch, even though that year on year was quite high. You see a bounce back in the equity markets. Like the NASDAQ was up. That's the main sort of one these days. The other ones weren't so convinced. And the market is sort of sitting on the sidelines waiting for something more tangible to happen, right? Before this, if it had seen 5% and say 1.2% month on month, you got to buy dollars. But it's one of those odd ones where it's just sitting back and you see the dollar index there, not really doing much at all. Now, just coming across, I've got some new charts here as well, some financial market charts. They're a bit more functional, but anyway, let me just explain what's going on. So you get the dollar index still in the range. Check out this price action. Let me just blow this chart up because this is like quite interesting to see. Whoops, if I can just get that up. Especially around those two key events, right? The ECB and the CPI numbers. Check out the price action. The market didn't know what to do with either component. And with Christine Lagarde speaking at the same time as the CPI, it really quashed the liquidity, but it didn't stop it moving around. Now that's almost down to 121.40 on euro. And up to say 121.95, like a 55-point range, right? Without much happening. And that's what you're trying to avoid. You're trying to avoid getting smashed up in the volatility around the actual release itself. And a lot of pairs are like this, a little bit of a drop off in the dollar index itself. That's reflected on dollar Swiss. Even dollar yen's joined the party. Dollar CAD just drifting sideways. Euro now sideways. Sterling came back, right? Sterling is very much attached to this rollout of the vaccines and all that sort of stuff. So if there's any negative vaccine news, sterling falls. Any positive vaccine news, it rallies. Aussie and Kiwi still got a bit of a downward trend here, but the Aussie, it's found fair ground, just trading sideways. So what's happened is the momentum has been diffused. The market is now in a situation where we're waiting for the next major release. Now, the ECB and the CPI, you'd think they'd give us something, but they're sort of almost mashed together, right? And really knock things out. So the market's now looking towards the next FOMC meeting for where is that next big dollar move going to come from? It's going to be from the FOMC, but I think there's a chance coming into next week where we have more second tier data. And this data is the stuff that is the building blocks of the foundation of the economy, not just the big ticket items like non-farm payrolls and CPI, where we can get a connection with that data and we start to see a dollar move. So as much as it looks like it may not happen just at the moment, I think next week's trading could be better than this week because sometimes these big events hijack momentum. They hijack all price activity, and we're often left sort of scratching our head to, what happened? Nothing happened. Why didn't it move? All these sorts of things. So that's what we're going to do at this stage is just relax, look for the next build up of opportunity. Look at the majors here in the Asian session. They are terribly mixed. So there's no clear trading opportunities there. As I said, momentum is being completely diffused. So what are you going to do today? Well, during the Asian session, there's probably not a lot to be done. But coming into the European session, there's a bunch of manufacturing GDP numbers coming out of the UK. So sterling's got to be, front and center. Don't forget, we haven't got much direction from the Fed. From the Bank of England. So the data doesn't really mean anything to us substantial at this point. All strong and weak data may get the Bank of England talking, and that's what we want, right? But just keep a close eye on it. As I said, sterling is very connected to the vaccine story, so you need to be watching that. University of Michigan's prelim numbers, it's pretty much the only thing we've got to go with with the US dollar. So I think it's a bit of a wait and see. Overall, I know the inflation numbers, there's components of the economy, as I said, like commodities, cars, and these sorts of things are through the roof, and that's really pushed inflation up. It's not a true reflection of the underlying inflation, but at the same time, inflation's still high in the US. It's got to go some way to building a story for some forward guidance from the Fed. But that's why we're looking forward to next week's second tier data to really give us that opportunity. Now, as we go through that, I mean, just looking at the markets in general, could be some good range bound opportunities coming up. Almost both sides of euro, the dollar index. I mean, we've got trend lines. I've got to draw a few more on these charts, which I've just put up. So just keep an eye on that as you go forward. It's funny how the quiet weeks, when you look at it as far as fundamentals go and everything else, can often be the best trading weeks. And that's what I'm sort of hoping for next week. All right, guys, not much else to report. The markets just churning away, doing their thing. Nothing major to follow or report at this stage. Look after your capital, manage your performance anxiety if you're struggling with not making money, and look forward to next week. All right, guys, have a good one. Cheerio.